Welcome to Her Story, the podcast that brings to life the stories of incredible women throughout history. Each episode uncovers the remarkable lives, achievements, and struggles of women who shaped the world, beyond the textbooks and headlines. Join us as we celebrate their legacies and inspire new generations with tales of courage, resilience, and trailblazing spirit. In today's episode, I'll be talking to Dr Estelle Paranque about her latest book, Thorns, Lust and Glory, The Betrayal of Anne Boleyn. Dr Estelle Paranque is an Associate Professor in History at Northeastern University, London, as well as an honorary research fellow within the Centre for the Study of the Renaissance at the University of Warwick. She earned a PhD in Early Modern European History from University College London in 2016. She has participated in international historical TV documentaries, including BBC Two's The Boleyns, A Scandalous Family, and Channel 4's The Queens Who Changed the World. She appears regularly on podcasts and gives talks to prestigious history and literary festivals. She's the author and editor of 6 books. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the podcast, Estelle. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me, Jess.
Now, I'm really excited for today. We've had this planned for over a year, so it's finally come around.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but hopefully it will just be very good and you'll be happy with it.
So before we get onto the main topic, I thought we could quickly talk about yourself, and I was wondering what first drew you to Tudor history.
So Tudor history, that's a very good question. Well, first of all, was as I think most people know, I'm from France. You can hear it in my accent. And my mum is a lover of history, so definitely not her career, but in a way, I think that she would have loved to pursue that career. So in a way, I'm doing it for both of us. And my mom just loved history, so she would take me to Les Châteaux de la Loire, to Versailles, to all of this, and I just had a very interest in understanding our past, understanding how our kings and queens used um to behave, like um what would they make such um decisions, and just to understanding our past really. And then what happened was I wanted to become a historian, but my dad was a bit scared that there would be no future for me doing this. So he made me do English studies. He was thinking that if I at least I would get good in English, I could do anything with my life. And I managed to convince him to let me do English studies where there was history, literature, linguistics, and translations, and he agreed. And that's where I realized, oh my God, that's what's happening when Catherine de Medici was ruling. And then I realized, and that's why then I learned about obviously Henry VIII, and that I highly despise. And I don't hide from it. His 6 wives, obviously, but it was really like, hey, he had 6 wives, 2 were, executed. What? And then you moved on to Elizabeth. And my first love was really Elizabeth. But in many ways, it was also because of what happened to her mother, Anne Boleyn. Um, I was so happy that she did so well, given how Anne Boleyn had been treated.
I mean, I was going to say, you don't shy away at all from hating Henry VIII, and I'm all here for it. Henry VIII hater over here as well.
We could create a club.
Where did the idea come from to write this book on Anne Boleyn? So you're talking more about her French connections and her French origins.
So that comes from there's a very particular moment. So I've been known, I think, in the field for doing Anglo-French history. My PhD is Anglo-French relations. It's Elizabeth I with the French Valois kings. Then my first trade book is obviously Elizabeth and Catherine de Medici. So I've always been known for that, for looking at French sources, looking at English history through French eyes, basically. And I got contacted by producers. Well, I mean, they contacted my agent, but regardless, to They were thinking about doing this TV series, like no TV documentary, docudrama. There's a bit of drama and there's a bit of documentaries with historians where I am, on screen with lots of my friends, Dr. Lauren Mackay, Dr. William Emerson, Gareth Russell, Dr. Elizabeth Norton. It was such, amazing to be working on this with them. But they contacted me because they said, like, we would like to know more about Anne Boleyn and the French. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And from that moment, I started doing the research to film. And I told my agent, I have my second book. And we went to my editor. She said, done. Like, where do we sign? Where do we get you like, yeah, yeah, that made so much sense to, for me to tell that story. And I got so intrigued because obviously she spent so many years in France. I really believe that Anne Boleyn becomes culturally French. And it's something very important, even for me, like to say that is a big thing. I've been living in England for 15 years. I still remain French, but I do understand British culture. Obviously, I'm a historian as well, but you become your identity kind of doesn't change, it just evolve and it just becomes bigger in a way. You're just not one thing anymore. And I think it's exactly what happened to Anne Boleyn. And so I was just very intrigued as well on what I couldn't understand, Jess. It was like, why? Why didn't they help her? What happened that made them, because they seem so interested in in her and they seem to care for her. Some of them definitely did. So I didn't understand and I really wanted to get to the bottom of it. So that's what I try to do with my book.
I mean, I think you did an excellent job. I mean, I read it last year and I read it in a week, which for me is quite fast when it comes to books.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, yes. I really wanted to, like understand her time in front. I wanted people to understand the French court. I wanted people to feel like they were traveling back in time in France with Anne. And if you want to know about Anne in that, during that time, you need to follow Claude. Claude is the queen she's serving. You need to follow the royal family, the women. And when you do that, you have someone that is quite extraordinary. Like, Jess, let's talk about this a little because I think it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Anne Boleyn, this English woman, noble woman. She's not, when people are like, oh my God, she's so lowborn. She's not that lowborn. It's just that she's not royal, right? I mean, she's not Catherine of Aragon. Catherine of Aragon is the daughter of the two most powerful European king and queen. Like have yeah, she's pure royal, right? Anne Boleyn is not this, but Anne Boleyn is something else. Anne Boleyn is more traveled than Henry VIII. She's more traveled than Catherine of Aragon. And people just think, oh, why? Well, first of all, she went to Mechelin, obviously, with Margaret of Austria. Then she went, obviously, to Paris, Château de la Loire. But what is even crazier for me is the fact that she went to Provence with Claude of France. Claude of France, it's very clear in the sources, Claude of France and her household went from Amboise to Marseille. And they spent time in Lyon, Tarascon, Orange, Avignon, Aix-en-Provence, Marseille. What? She saw the Mediterranean for crying out loud. And it sounds like not crazy, but it is crazy. It is a view that must have like taken her breath away. That it is, I've seen like especially where she went to welcome Francis. I didn't. So I used to live in Marseille. Well, my parents lived in Marseille, and I used to live in Marseille. The view of this navy coming back from victory, it's breathtaking. Notre Dame de la Garde à Marseille is stunning. And she would have been there. You have then to imagine that every tapestry was about women power. Louise of Savoy, Claude of France, her saying that, women being throughout the whole journey down to Provence, being, loved and acclaimed. And it gives you a sense of like, oh my God, this is just amazing. And obviously then she goes back to England and I think that's where she made a mistake. It's a very different court. Women are not that praised or that loved. So she's one of the most traveled people in England when she comes back to England. The one who really compete with her, and I think he wins, unfortunately, and I hate saying this, but it's Cromwell. And also, it's also why it gives such an advantage to Cromwell. He spent time in Antwerp, he spent time in Italy, he went to France as well. He went to lots of places. And when you travel, your perspective on things are very different. You understand the world in a way that people don't understand the world, especially in the 16th century, right? And lots of people did travel, like traders, and it was not, that uncommon in many ways, but it was uncommon for ladies in wait for noble women, for ladies in waiting. And so she's different. When people say she's exotic, it's that. It's what she say. I think you could see in Anne that she saw a lot of different things.
I mean, I know it's always said, and it went to the French court, but I don't think, as you say, it's like it's not evaluated properly what she spent and what she saw at the French court is. No, you don't understand this completely changed it because she had a completely different experience compared to everyone else.
And she was growing, right? Are we talking? I believe she was born in 1500, 1501. So here you have to understand that it's like she's born, in 1500, 1501. So she would have been 15, 16. As teenage years, they're the formative years. It's incredible.
When did Anne first arrive at the French court, and when do we know she left the French court?
So she arrived at the French court. I would have a hard time to tell you exactly when, but because she was in Mechlin and she could not go back to England and then go with Mary Tudor because that would have been the reason first to go. So Mary Boleyn was, in a way, replacing her to keep her place there. And then she joined them and she arrived in Paris. So it must have been, I don't want to say something stupid, but January or February 1515, something around that, around that time. And then obviously we know that the marriage between she was not here for the coronation of Mary Tudor, no Mary the First, Mary Tudor, the sister of Henry VIII. She was not here for the coronation, her coronation, but then we know she's so then everything went, kind of crazy because the king died, Mary Tudor came back to England. Then there's only one Boleyn who stayed, and it's Anne. And we know that for multiple different sources across the century, even Catherine de Medici refers to Anne Boleyn, saying to Elizabeth, we should be friends because your mother was a friend of the French. She was friend with Claude de France, Renée de France, who was Claude's sister, who also was a lady in waiting. So it's very clear that it was Anne who stayed at the French court and not Mary. And Mary was not the mistress of Francis I, and Anne was never as well the mistress of Francis I. All these things that the bull and horse and that kind of myth. Ah, yeah, So when we move on from that, um, and then she came back. It's 1521. She's called back, and the excuse is, oh, but she needs to get married, and she needs to marry her cousin in Ireland. It's all this complex time here with what's happening for George Boleyn. But there's also another reason, right? The relationship between France and England is going sour again, and obviously they want Anne Boleyn back. Um, so she stayed like 7 years, like more or less 6 years. Yeah,
And I think a lot of people don't understand why did she stay in France after Mary's marriage? Obviously, Louis died, so why did she stay in France?
that's the craziest part is that we're not sure, right? I mean, we don't have like the evidence of what we know is that she stayed. Now, it's not that crazy when you think that Thomas Boleyn got her into Margaret, is the one who got her into Margaret of Austria's court in Mechlin. He was already a special envoy, an ambassador, a diplomat. So he must have asked, don't try, don't get. I think this could be the motto of Thomas Boleyn. Is someone who tried, is someone who asked, would you mind if my daughter was staying? I would like her to learn French more. She's been sometimes at Margaret of Austria's court. Margaret was really happy with her. Claude also was a young queen, so having young women around her, you know, must have been appealing, like also someone who was very different from the French woman, who was, probably had story to tell about Margaret of Austria, score or a story to tell about England and how it was to live in England, and so you can see like the appeal of having someone who had traveled and who was different, and why not? And
Moving to the mid 1520s, when sadly Henry decided he wanted to be with Anne, did she become a French diplomat in terms, kind of, promoting the French?
so when Henry VIII is interested in her,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, no, she never had that title, but it's very clear that she becomes a French agent in a way that it's very clear they know the French are happy about this. They're happy that he's interested in someone who spent some time in France. She almost become a French substitute princess, but she's never a princess. She's never royal. I think she forgot that. But she's gonna move, and obviously it makes sense as well. Catherine of Aragon is Spanish. She's obviously pushing the interest of, an Anglo-Spanish alliance. For Anne, it makes sense to have the support of the greatest rival of Charles V of Spain, which is Francis I of France, and here to think that through her he would gain more support from Henry VIII against his battles and his wars against Charles V. And it's something she's happy to do. She's a Francophile, complete Francophile. She loved France. She loves French culture. She didn't bring to England Frenchhood, but she popularized it. She made it fashionable. She made it cool to wear. Um, she is this woman who spent so much time in France that, they could trust her to advance their own interest at court. And it's what she did. Now, is she a diplomat? Probably not. Not in the same way. Catherine of Aragon was the first female diplomat, but it was a title she received. She was really here to represent her parents' court at England court. Here, we don't have that. At no point Francis I is asking her or giving her, that role of like being the official diplomat of France. But she becomes an agent. She becomes a political agent. She does favor the French ambassadors massively. She gives them more audiences. That's also why Eustace Sheppey, obviously he's not gonna like her, but also like she gives them audiences. She vouched for them for Henry VIII. So yeah, like she plays a role.
When Anne is basically about to become queen in 1533, how did the French feel about this marriage between her and Henry?
It's very complex because we know that in 1532, Anne Boleyn and Henry went to Boulogne and met with Francis I. Now, we will never know what he actually told the couple. What we know is that Henry did not want Anne to meet Francis, and she disobeyed him. So there was this festivities, this celebrations, this dinner, and Henry had told Anne not to come, and she arrives with her ladies in waiting regardless. When she arrives, Francis is happy to see her and talks to her privately. We don't know what they told each other, right? But now it's not far-fetched to think about that he's saying a few things. You have to understand as well, Francis the First, his position in 1532, 1533. First of all, he's been in 1526. He had his biggest loss against Charles V. He was a prisoner in Spain. He hates Spain, but he's also lost a lot against Spain. He's what's very important to him is to have a very strong relation with the Pope. He knows that the Pope had been sacked. I mean, there's a sack of Rome in 1527. He knows that that's the reason why the Pope is not granting, anything that Henry is asking. He thinks that's very unfair for Henry VIII. He thinks Henry VIII should be able to get an annulment, should be able to marry whoever. Obviously, he's going to say that because obviously if it's Anne Boleyn, but, he really believed in that. But he's like, okay, but at the same time, he really wants a good relationship with the Pope, and he's himself like negotiating a marriage between his second son, Henry, the Duke of Orleans, with Catherine de' Medici, the Pope's niece. And nothing should go between that, and his plan. Like, it's very, very important to him that nothing comes and ruin this. So he doesn't want to give official support. He's very careful what he says, very careful what he does. And I don't think that he expected them. Definitely doesn't want Henry VIII to break with Rome. Definitely doesn't want that. He thinks that they need to find a solution. I think he must have said to that he supports them, that he agrees with them, but that they need to be more patient. At the end of the day, they're not more patient. They come back to England, get married. She's crowned, in the 1st June 1533. So like it's a bit like, oh, okay then, and she's pregnant. And here I think Francis the First is hoping, like Henry, okay, if it's a boy, then it's all worth, like, we'll have a claim that Henry did all of this to have his male heir. In a way, you think that the yeah, and but Henry, he sees Henry VIII being a bit reckless. He's like, oh, the act of supremacy. What on earth are you doing? Like, you can't do. And he thinks that everything will stop once Anne gives birth to a boy, and she doesn't. And that's a disappointment. That's, oh my God. But that is just the first one, right? So there's still hope. There's still hope that she will get pregnant, and we know that she gets pregnant again. She has miscarriages. She has. And that's where it becomes harder and harder. But I'm going to tell you something, Jess. The French tried very hard to get, an annulment for Henry, even after 1533, even after the Act of Supremacy, even after, Anne Boleyn is crowned, the marriage and everything. They still want Anne to be recognized by everyone, the Catholic Church, everyone in Europe as the Queen of England. The one who doesn't want it to happen is Henry VIII. When the French are sending this envoys, where they're doing all their work, Jean du Bellay, the French ambassador who really supports Anne, tries everything he can. The one who doesn't do it, doesn't do what he needs to do for Anne Boleyn to be recognized, for the annulment between Catherine of Aragon and Henry VIII to be recognized, is Henry VIII. Henry VIII is like, no, I will be head of my church, break with Rome, and that is it. But also, it feels to me that he really doesn't want Anne to be recognized. And I find it interesting. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's always planning the future.
When things started to go badly for Anne from the end of 1536 into 1535 into 1536, did the French decide that it wasn't worth their time to continue championing Anne in her queenship?
So it's a bit different. So you have different people. Francis is like, you have to understand the marriage is not Henry VIII is still married in the Catholic eyes to Catherine of Aragon. So for them, until the annulment is recognized by the Pope, Anne is not the rightful queen of it. It's very hard for them to, even regardless of how they feel about her, regardless if they like her or not, she is not in the Catholic Church recognized the Queen of England. She's not the rightful queen, the rightful wife. And Catherine of Aragon is still alive in 1535. So for them, it's very hard. Jean du Bellay still tries, as I said, to do everything he can. He petitions the Pope, he goes to Rome, he's betrayed um, by many people, but mostly by Henry. Henry doesn't help him. And what happens is that Francis, what more can he do? Can he really recognize a marriage that is not in the eyes of his faith and his church recognized? Not, it's very hard. So then he's like, okay, but I still need an alliance with England. And that's why he does let her down because, well, in Anne Boleyn's eyes, you can understand this way. It's like he's trying to get an alliance between his third son and Princess Mary. So he sends Philippe Chabot, who's absolutely dreadful to Anne. And Anne says, no, the Princess of England is Elizabeth. Mary is Lady Mary. It's like, no. Like maybe in your world, maybe in your little eyes. But in the eyes of everyone in Europe, the next heir to the throne is Mary. And we want an alliance with Mary. And the reason why Francis is doing that is like to ensure that the relationship or the alliance between France and England remains strong, regardless of everything that's happening. Obviously, it's going to be refused. When you look at it, Henry VIII refused any match for his daughters anyway. So that's another interesting, I think, thing to think about. But also, so when Catherine of Aragon died, you have to understand, January 1536, the downfall is in May. Like, but it goes so quickly. Even if they would have tried to convince Henry not to do this, to send her to France instead, there was no time. She's arrested on 2nd of May, 1536. Even Chapuis didn't have any clue of what was going on. He writes it in April, end of April 1536. He's saying, no, the queen, well, the concubine and the king are supposed to go to Rochester. And he's literally waiting for Henry to come and get, to come and get her to go to Rochester. She thinks she's going to go, with him somewhere. She's not. Then she arrives and they arrest her. That is not, like. And then there's no time. From the 2nd of May to the 19th of May, there's barely 3 weeks. It's two, right? 17 days. It's nothing. There's not enough time for going back and forth. There's no discussion with France. There's no one who can really, do anything. The French ambassador, Philippe Chabot, is like, that's out of my, he doesn't like her. Even if he was writing a letter, I think it did shock him in many ways. He shocked many, many people. But, at the end of the day, the one who got shocked was obviously his secretary, Lancelot de Carle, the one who's going to write the life and death of Anne Boleyn and who's going to witness her death because he wrote it like she was French in her manners and everything. And it's tragic. It's shocking. It's never been done before. It's atrocious. It's appalling. And in his life and death, Lancelot de Carle's life and death, he's censored obviously in England. He goes back to France. And Henry VIII is furious that he wrote it. And he asked Francis I to make sure that it's censored. And Francis I agreed to not publish it widely, but he basically approved for it to be spread at court. And it spread all over in the French court. What happened to this English queen who once lived in France among them? That is insane. Do you see what I mean? So at that time, there's nothing they can do. Jean du Bellay didn't hear it on time, didn't know what was going on. At that time, I think he's in Italy, and he has no idea what's going on. They all learned it way after. So there was 2nd of May, 19th of May, 17 days, not enough time for anyone to intervene. It's done on purpose.
That's Henry for you. He will make sure there's no obstacles in his way.
Exactly.
Towards the end of the podcast, I like to ask my guests some fun history questions. So first off, have you got a historical pet peeve?
I'm not sure, maybe too many to list them. I hate the fact that we think that Jane Boleyn was betrayed the Boleyns. That's one myth that really annoys me. The other is Mary Stuart being seen as a victim that really gets on my nerves. Um, the other one is Charles the First being so misunderstood. Like people will come at me for this, but I don't care. Like I just feel like there's so much more to him than people believe. And if you want to learn more about him, you should look at his private and personal letters to his wife. I think then it's a very different man that you look at. Cromwell, Oliver, obviously, and Thomas, but Oliver Cromwell is the worst for me. Absolutely hate that guy. Um, Thomas Cromwell, I feel nothing for him, no pity. There's like some admiration because I do recognize how hard it worked to get where he went, but I think he was, yeah, yeah. For me, what he did to Anne Boleyn is unforgivable. Didn't, yeah, everyone knew it was all lies.
If you could go back to any event or day in history, when would it be and why?
I don't know. Sometimes I wish I could go back on the 1st May 1536 and try to make Anne Boleyn escape and bring her back to France. I would like to warn her. Somehow, if I could go back, I would like to warn her. Find a way to let Jean du Bellay know about it. Because Jean du Bellay's patron is Margaret of Angoulême. She has money. And see if anyone can save her, like get her a boat to go to France and save her life. Maybe with Elizabeth. So they can be together. I don't know. But if they had been together, maybe then Elizabeth would not have ruled. I don't know. It's just such a hard. I would like to go to the coronation of Elizabeth the First. That must have been a cool one, especially how she annoyed everyone. So that would have been funny to watch.
And finally, have you got a favourite historical fact?
Oh, that's a very difficult one. Yeah, I do. It's simple. It's a manuscript, like it's in a letter of Mary Stuart, the decoded letters, where she says, "As long as I live, I shall remain or shall be French. My heart will remain, will be French." And it's something I've said for years. Mary Queen of Scots is French first and foremost, and I love that she wrote it down in her secret letters, decoded letters. It's very clear. This woman felt so French, and we tend to make her that she's so Scottish, and that's not true.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come on today and discuss your wonderful book.
Thank you for having me, Jess.
Thank you for listening to Her Story. If there's a historical woman who inspires you and you'd like to share her story on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch at unholytudor@gmail.com. Until next time, keep celebrating the incredible women who've shaped our world.